Hello, folks. Welcome to another edition of Social Media News Live. This is going to be an incredible show. I've been wanting to have Alec on for a while. We've hung out at the first ever creator camp over at Ecamm. He has an incredible YouTube channel. He's an incredible trainer. If you're any part of the Ecamm fam, you know who Alec is. So I'm very honored to have him on the show because it's late in Thailand, and I'm glad that he decided to stay up, have a couple cups of coffee and, be here with us today. This is going to be an exciting show. Connor Brown, how are you doing in the great state of Florida?
I'm doing great. I have a question for both of you gentlemen. Have you ever heard the phrase, March comes in like a lion and out like a lamb?
Yeah. That's been around for a while. Okay.
Okay. Well, because I said it the other day, because it's very windy here, beginning of March. That makes sense. I said it the other day, and about 5 people looked at me like I had 3 heads, and they had never heard that phrase before. So March is coming in like a lion. That's my roundabout way of saying what's going on here in Orlando.
So, you always make fun of me for saying, old things. That's an old thing. That's old, man. Come on.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I got it from my grandparents or something.
So we got our friends already popping in today. We got Rich Grand going saying, whoa, late Friday night in Thailand. That is so true. The amazing Chris Stone is saying, Alec, the man. Yeah, in fact, he was on, last month. He was on the Dealcaster show. Great episode. So make sure you guys go check that out. Middleton Baptist Church says, hello, my live friends. And Ask Ralph says, hello, everybody. Alec, I really enjoying your course information. So we're going to be talking all about what Alec has to offer, but I'm just so excited that he's here because he is like the guru when it comes to virtual presentations, live video, all this stuff, and we're going to dive into that today. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and go on the podcast machine, and we will get started. Hello, folks. Welcome to Social Media News Live. I'm Jeff C., and you're not.
And I'm Connor Brown, and this is the show that keeps you up to date on what's happening in the world of social media and more.
You ever wondered what it really takes to create live videos that captivate and connect? Maybe you're looking for ways to make your presentations, live streams, or virtual events more engaging and professional. Or maybe you want to step up your on-camera confidence and master delivering value in real time. If so, you're in for a treat today because this week we're sitting down with someone who has perfected the art of live video. Alec Johnson of Take One Tech has built a name for himself by creating polished one-take videos that grab attention and keep audiences engaged. He'll be sharing his journey, his best tips, and his strategies for delivering high-quality video without the stress. So sit back, clear your schedule, clear your mind, and get ready for this week's episode of Social Media News Live. Alec, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation with you both.
Yeah.
And we're looking forward to the conversation as well. But if you don't know who Alec is, you should, because Alec Johnson is the founder of Take One Tech and creator of the Digital Stage Academy, a comprehensive program designed to help entrepreneurs elevate their online presence through impactful live video, immersive presentations, and digital stage mastery. Drawing from his hands-on experience building his own successful online platform, Alec has guided thousands of creators and entrepreneurs to leverage their digital platforms for maximum impact. And at the heart of the Digital Stage Academy is Alec's philosophy, delivering true value with clarity, confidence, and connection on the digital stage. Alec was giving us some behind the scenes that he has going on for the Academy. It sounds incredible. He has so much to teach us. So Alec, thanks again for being here.
So we're going to jump right into this, and we're going to be talking a lot today, I'm sure, about our sponsors, which is Ecamm. You can find out more about them at ecamm.com/Jeff. You can save 15% on your first purchase by using the code Jeff15. Alec that's where I met Alec. He's part of the Ecamm fam. He does tons of training. Like Ralph already said this morning, his trainings are amazing. So we're going to pick his brain. Like I said, I love this show because it's free consulting for me and and for you. So make sure you ask your questions down below. But we're going to jump right into this first section. We're going to be talking about delivering value with live video. And personally, I think because of the rise of AI and everything going on where we can't really trust sometimes now the written word and even some images, this interaction that we're having with our audience is something that I think AI can't replicate anytime soon. So delivering this value through live video. So you've built this reputation, Alec, on the high quality live video production. So, what do you think some misconceptions people have about delivering like real value through live video?
I think one of the main ones actually is that when we talk about live production and live video, that we are talking about live streaming effectively.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in actual fact, it translates over into far more than that, into live to tape. So recording things live, but then also in all the business interactions we have. So every time we're on a Zoom call, if we're doing an event or a webinar or something like that, that's also live video. It's just the process for me, at least, of the live production aspect. And that's really what Ecamm enables us to do, is be able to do all the things that you're doing right here on this show. So switching scenes, bringing up different information onto the screen. If you're doing a sales presentation, if you're an educator or a coach, or whatever it is, whatever value it is that you're trying to deliver, through the lens effectively, it's this ability to do it in a live scenario where you can just bring up the information on screen freely as you're trying to deliver that content. And it can actually, therefore, I believe, almost replicate or even be more enhanced than even just a face-to-face meeting, because quite often, you don't always have all the information that you need to hand. If you're on a desk, sitting across a desk rather, with all the information spread across the table, it might look a little bit of a mess. Whereas we can actually create a really polished look where you're just bringing up the content as and when you need it onto the screen. So I think that's the biggest thing for me, is just understanding that when we talk about live production, we're not just talking about live streaming. We are talking about recorded content that's live to tape, live to disc or whatever.
Right.
But then also, streaming live into a coaching call or a webinar or a sales call or a class, a workshop or whatever on Zoom.
Very great points. Yeah, that's one of the things that I love about it. I tell everybody Monday and Fridays are my favorite day, because Monday I have a paid mastermind group that Connor's a part of as well, and then on Friday is just I get to hang out with all these cool people and ask these fun questions and interact with the audience. So that's one of the things I know you enjoy about video as well. So Connor, you had a question?
Yeah, Alec, I love, Take One Tech. I just love that name. And that brand, Take One Tech, it suggests that you aim to create this content in one take. And I'm sure everyone listening here has gone through this scenario. You're either recording something into the camera or on your phone, you have a message and you record 15 different versions because you keep stumbling, you keep mumbling, and why, you idiot? Why can't you get this right? Why can't you get this right? You get down on yourself, right? So it's easier said than done, but I love that notion, because it's how quick you can do it, how effective you can do it, and then you can go on to the next thing. So Alec, how did you kind of come up with that philosophy of take one, and why is it so important to you?
It actually came from me trying to record a course. This was before Take One Tech itself and all the courses that I do now. It was a completely separate course for a different business that I was involved in at the time. And it's kind of embarrassing how long it took me to record even a 5-minute video for a course, because I was doing it the proper way, editing, where I was recording sections and stitching it together and editing. And I didn't have great editing skills. That was new to me as well. And I just felt that it didn't come across as being like me, essentially, when I was trying to edit it. Not to mention the fact that, I would think that I'd got all the pieces that I needed to stitch together to make something complete, and then realize there was a bit missing afterwards. So I'd have to go and re-record a bit. And it was just it was a nightmare. It was taking me far too long. And because I knew that I could edit myself, I was therefore also looking for the perfect take all the time, the perfect little segment to use. And that perfectionist in me was really my stumbling block. That was the thing that was stopping me. And the thing that I just sort of reflected on was, I've run events in multiple locations with audiences of all sizes, of all types, and I'd never have any issue with public speaking if I'm standing on a stage. So I just couldn't understand why, when I was suddenly sitting down in front of a camera, there was this thing then that I was this different person where it didn't feel like me, because my perfectionism was trapping me, basically. And so I figured, well, if I could just deliver it as if I was just talking to a friend, a colleague, I'm lots of people's go-to tech support, in my life
Mm-hmm.
before people come in and ask me things. So I figured, well, if I could just sit down and explain it as if I was doing it to a friend, a colleague, or a family member or whatever, then that would be much better. So I looked into, well, is it possible that I could perhaps do this where I'm recording? And I looked at things like, ScreenFlow and various different screen sharing apps that you can get, or screen recording apps, I should say. But they really lacked a connection. It was just, I didn't like the look of those. And then I just stumbled across, this idea of, there is actually live production software. And actually the first one I tried was OBS. And I always say I pulled out my last hair with OBS because it didn't work the way that my mind works. And then I just happened to be watching a podcast that I love, Mac Break Weekly, and it happened to be that Doc Rock was on there, and he just mentioned Ecamm, and so I thought, oh, let me have a look at that, and that was it. I was sold from that moment on. And so I actually set the channel up, Take One Tech, as a way to practice the process of making videos in one take. It wasn't the sort of the end goal. It was just a little test bed for it, and obviously sharing some knowledge there as well. And I set myself the goal of 100 videos in 100 days. It wasn't like a full-time thing. I was basically just, I get up usually at 3 o'clock in the morning anyway. So like 4 a.m. till 6 a.m. was my recording and YouTube time. So I would get up, record a 30-minute tutorial, make the thumbnail, post it, and do all of that. And it's just sort of grown from there, really.
Awesome.
But that was the origin of it all.
I love origin stories. So, what are your, I know AI is on the rise. Like I used a script for my clients and for my show and all this stuff, but what are some, strategies and tips for recording those videos in the way that you've kind of honed for Take One Tech, and just by keeping it polished and professional? Because if you look at your YouTube channel and even when you go live just on your YouTube channel or wherever, Alec, it's really polished. It looks really nice. So what are your tips for people who are just starting out with Ecamm or their live video journey to have that polished and professional look?
It's just a bit of preparation, really. So when I started my channel, I set up the channel and then set myself a date of like 1 month later to post my first video and to go live for the first time. That was my first video, was a first live stream. And yeah, in that month, I basically spent some time, being more familiar with Ecamm, but setting up some scenes. But the other thing I would say is, it's easy to look at some things that other people are doing where they've maybe got, dozens of scenes potentially. And then if you try and set something like that up from the beginning, you've then got to have this muscle memory of knowing like where all the scenes are. And it can actually add to, overwhelm and, potentially stop you from doing things. So I'm a big one for avoiding friction wherever possible. And anything that's kind of doesn't have a flow to it is going to add friction. So start simple with, you could just easily have a couple of scenes in Ecamm. It's really simple to create something that looks really nice with a nice background in it, and your camera overlay, maybe a couple of lower thirds or things like that. But start simple with it, and then build up that muscle memory of knowing, which button you're pressing is going to change to which scene effectively. Right. And then as you develop a need for more things, then add those in slowly, and you'll just you'll be flying in no time.
That's awesome. So when you say take one, do you ever, like I know into script, you can actually go in and record a bunch, and then it'll actually go in and take off some of those bad takes, I guess. Do you use anything like that? Yeah. Or are you just polished?
No, so it's... when I first named the channel, it was going to be One Take Tech, and for some reason I thought Take One Tech sounded right. better somehow. But the actual truth of it is, it's not always the first take, but it's only ever the take one and take two are usually about 10 seconds, because the thing that I find never comes naturally to me is like the hook in a recorded video. This is so that bit at the beginning where you say, this video is for you if X, Y, and Z, and you're trying to hook people into it to continue watching. That's the bit that never comes fully naturally to me. So quite often, and I should probably just spend a little bit more time, at least script the first sentence or something. Right, but I always just dive straight into it and say, right, let's go then. So usually it's I screw that part up regularly, I would say. So it's sometimes take 3, but it's only the first, as I say, 10 seconds usually. But then after that, I just run with it. mistakes and all, because this is the point. I mean, I'm very flattered the way you say, that it's all polished in that. But what you'll actually find if you look look beneath
carefully. Right.
look beneath the veneer of Ecamm,
Right.
is that I am actually not constantly, I am actually occasionally stumbling over my words, like I just did. I am occasionally correcting myself. Or, even if it's a tutorial and I move the mouse and go to click on a button and say, oh no, not that button, it's this button. And it's fine to make those sorts of things, because I think that just adds to that feeling of it being just me chatting with you, the viewer, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not perfection. That's the whole point of it. It's not perfect at all. It is just more conversational.
Awesome.
I love that. And I want to make a clarifying point for Jeff. X, Y, and Z is
I know what
X,
it is.
Y, Z. I just wanted to translate that for our Texas friend. I got your back, Mike.
I am an international traveler. I can figure that out pretty good. Yes. Thank you.
Oh, my apologies.
Yeah. So there you go.
That brings us to, Alec, you talk about a huge importance of clarity, confidence, and connection in digital stage mastery. I think when we were just talking about it, like stumbling over your words, those sorts of things, they happen, but you still want to be clear, right? You still want to have clarity in what you're saying. And those sorts of stumbling blocks can also affect our confidence, right? The other thing is the connection. Like, how do we connect to someone when we're just talking to a camera right here when it's a virtual system? Can you kind of break down the importance of each of those, clarity, confidence, and connection, and what it means when it comes to live video?
Yeah, the clarity one in particular, I think sometimes people don't necessarily always frame, like, let's say it's a tutorial video, for example. Sometimes people start off with a load of assumed knowledge, or that they have for the viewer, and so being perfectly clear also factors in that, where you want to try and make sure that you're framing the thing correctly, but also not necessarily making too many assumptions about that. So that's something that I tend to get positive feedback over. I'm sure I miss the point of that sometimes, but being sort of clear on what the thing is that you're talking about, but also making sure that you're giving the sort of background knowledge, if that makes sense. Not assuming that people are coming in at a certain level, but then the confidence comes with speaking confidently, obviously, but knowing your stuff. So having that knowledge, but that doesn't mean that you have to not make any mistakes. So I think that confidence does show through if you are able to make a little misstep and then continue on, or if you're in a live stream and people ask questions. There is no harm also in saying confidence. I think sometimes people think is just assuming that you're right all the time. I will regularly say, I don't know, so that's fine too. But the connection is something that is really important to just bear in mind, that whenever you think about live streaming or going live on YouTube, it's easy to just think that, potentially the world is watching, however many billion users YouTube has got, and, potentially you're opening yourself up to all of those people. Obviously, you're not. I mean, the first live stream I did, I had 0 viewers because I had 0 subscribers. Right. So, although a few people have sadly gone back and watched it since, but, you're ultimately only ever speaking to a person through the lens. And so I pretty much always have somebody in mind when I'm making a video, because I'm usually making a video that's come about because of a question, or that I know that somebody's asked about something, adjacent to the topic or something. And so I always feel that I am speaking to somebody, and that's something that I think makes it a lot easier as well to have a more natural way on the camera, because you are speaking to somebody who you feel that you're and that you're familiar with. And so that then translates to people who are potentially strangers then watching it, but they're going to get that same sort of vibe coming through in the content as well.
Yeah, those are all great points. And I think, we've got some great comments coming up. And once again, I love the audience that we get every week. So we've got, like Gary saying, Gary Stockton, a longtime supporter of the show, says, the Elgato prompter has been a lifesaver for me. I agree, Gary. It's what I'm using here. And I like being able to look Alec in the eye. Connor, not so much, but Alec, I really enjoy talking to him. But it's a great tool. It's a great tip for when you're doing live video. And then, but mostly Disney says, each week I add something to my scenes. He just started using Ecamm not too long ago, and the next step is adding slides to be able to move through. And he says, last week I actually switched back and forth from different speakers, which I think is great. Like, don't try to do it all at once. Like Alec was saying, that muscle memory is huge when you're first starting out, and adding this, I think, is very, very smart to kind of step up the process. One of the things, Alec, on kind of the same note, when you're trying to deliver value with live, how do you measure if your live stream is actually delivering value to your audience? I mean, one, you can pull up comments like what we're doing here, but how do you measure, like, okay, that video worked or that live stream worked, that one didn't, I need to refine it a little bit. What are your thoughts of like measuring the success of your live presentations?
Yeah, it is that direct feedback, and that's one of the things I love about live streaming as as a content creator. And when I did those 100 videos in 100 days, it was actually 6 a week were recorded videos, but then I always had like a weekly live stream.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that, especially in the beginning of the channel, it was really powerful to have that feedback loop, because then I was also at that stage felt like I didn't really fully know who my audience was. Like when I first started the channel, although I knew the content I was creating, you never really know, who it's going to fully resonate with. So that was a great sort of feedback loop for that. But then it is the feedback that I get and the comments that I get that really provide that. So I guess that it does ultimately always come down to the comments that you're getting in the actual live itself, the comments that you're getting in the chat, and then also with running my academy, we have like a weekly, a bit like you have your membership group on Monday, you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
So I have something similar for me on a Thursday, and I do those at Thursday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. my time for folks in different time zones. But that for me is like such a powerful feedback loop as well, because although we have our own discussions, but many of those are actually watching the live streams as well. And so we have a live stream backstage that I do during the live stream. So that's like an immediate feedback loop that I get after every live stream, where we go live into Zoom, first of all, 15 minutes before the stream starts, do the live stream, and then we'll have a hangout for 50 minutes, an hour or something like that after the stream ends. So that's like a direct, face to face effectively.
Right.
And it's not like they're all there giving me an evaluation, but I get a feeling of how things have perhaps gone.
Yeah. So, by the way, I wanted to let people know to make sure to not just watch Alec's live stream on his YouTube channel, but he's got some just great videos, period, on like how to use the Rodecaster. He's got stuff like I can't remember the name of it, but I'm getting ready to play with it. But a company that does overlays that you can tie into Ecamm. You did it a couple.
Oh, Uno,
yeah.
Uno overlay. Yeah.
There's a great video on that. So he's got things that are very specific, but you need to check out his channel because he has great options, especially like, but mostly Disney. If you're just getting, your feet under you with Ecamm, there's some cool stuff that Alec has over there that can walk you through some even more exciting things you can be interactive with.
On the point of Ecamm, the first course that I made was the Ecamm Live Masterclass, and I completely redid it earlier last year. But I actually made that completely free, so it's still like a 150 video full-on masterclass on Ecamm. Absolutely everything you need to know about it, and you can get that at ecammlivemasterclass.com. There's no catch; it's a completely free course, right. And there is a beginner's guide section in there as well. So there's sort of 13 lessons at the very beginning that just walk you through, first of all, what's the UI? How does that work? What are scenes? What are overlays? How to use it with Zoom, with Keynote, and things like that. So just go through the quick start guide. You'll be up and running and using it. But then you can go deeper into all of those things in all of the following modules. So as I say, it's over 150 lessons. And then the profile that I use that we create going through the course is available for download. So that gives you that starting point as well. So if you are looking at Ecamm and you're new to Ecamm, then that would get you completely up and running and take you as deep as you need to go with it as well.
Yeah, it's awesome. In fact, we've already got some people. And I'm right. If Chris Stone agrees with me, that it's right, because he says Alec's YouTube channel is outstanding source for virtual presentation tips and tactics. He's learned a ton from it, and good news. But mostly Disney just subscribed, so he's excited to dive into that content. So very cool.
Awesome. Kind of as we transition to this next section, we want to talk about, Alec. We kind of talked about it just briefly, but it's this notion that businesses and quote unquote live streamers are kind of opting for live to tape recordings rather than just like a full live stream into the world. Can you kind of just give a brief overview of what that means, live to tape, how it differs from live streaming fully, and then what are like the benefits and the drawbacks of going with this live to tape method?
So how it differs from live streaming is that you're not going. Sorry to be so obvious. You're not going live out to any platform.
Yeah.
You're just hitting a record button, and then it's saving that video to your hard drive or wherever. Now the thing about this is it is a completely transferable skill. So it can be live streamed or it can be live to tape, as I keep saying, but live to disc. But you can also then use the same live production skills to go into Zoom or whatever. So that's what I really love about it. It is this transferable thing that once you get into live production, you can use it for recording, streaming, or just for meetings or webinars or whatever. When it comes to recording those videos in one take, though, for me, as I mentioned, the impetus of creating the channel was to practice this process, just because of the state I was in with trying to make edited videos. I was always giving myself that out of thinking, well, I can always fix it in post, and so I would therefore be retaking all the time. And so if you can get into this, start simple with just a couple of scenes with the information that you want to include on the screen, maybe a couple of camera angles if you want to do that sort of thing as well, but just keep it minimal and just have a few buttons on your Stream Deck to do the switching, then you just get into that habit of doing that, and you can create literally a 30-minute video in maybe 10 minutes of prep and a 30-minute video. So it really is that for me. It's the efficiency of being able to create those videos. And I simply wouldn't have had the volume of content on my channel if I was doing it any other way. And more so, not even just that time that it would take to do it, but then I would also be putting it off because of this thing of friction. It's my own worst enemy, my nemesis. And if something's going to stand in my way of doing it, then I'm more likely to procrastinate on it and not doing it. Whereas it is very easy to just come in and hit record and do it. Yeah. The downside of it, if there is one, is that it does take a little bit of practice to get over that thing of, well, I'm just going to hit record and then do it. But that does definitely come with practice. And I would say one of the best ways of doing it is actually to just start doing it and putting out onto a YouTube channel in the same way that I did, because what you get then is you really get this immediate feedback from it, where you have this dawning realization that nobody cares about the mistakes, and it really does sort of validate what you're doing when you realize that, oh yeah, all those little things that I would have noticed if I was watching the recording back, nobody's noticing them, or at least they don't care. It really brought it home to me actually when I watched a course by somebody, and I think what they'd intended to do was edit it after the fact. Because there were points in the course where, let's say they were going to go and click on a button somewhere, and they said, oh, okay, now I'm going to go and click on this button here, and then you do, whatever it is. Right. And then they kind of stopped halfway through because they realized they'd misspoke or something. And then they just stopped, composed themselves, took a breath, and then repeated the thing again. Yeah. Now, that was I think an error that they meant to go back and fix. But you know what? I didn't feel any less about the person for that being in there, and it didn't really actually hamper the thing. And that's kind of an extreme case, but it just made me realize that, yeah, well, if you look at the way that you look at other people's content and have that same level of compassion that you have towards others for yourself, you'll realize that, yeah, people don't care about the little things that maybe stand out a lot more to you.
Yeah. So another example of live to tape, for example, if you want to go back on our YouTube channel, I had Ask Ralph talk all about using, he's an accountant, he's an amazing guy. And so we talked about using how to do finances for creators. That one, I had to go to a conference in Austin. And so we did it like this show, but it was live to tape. So if you do have a live show that's on a schedule, having the ability to do that is really cool, because you can actually take a break and you're not tied every time to a live show. Now, I wasn't able to bring up comments, of course, and all that stuff, but it was a great option. It was great content, but I wouldn't have been able to do it unless I had done what Alec was talking about with learning those skills to go live to tape. On live to tape, Alec, I want to ask a question. Are you doing any editing after you go, or is it like what I've done with this is it's just going out?
That's exactly it. Yeah. So
Okay.
I just do it and then I put it out. There's probably been like I think I've done about 500 videos now, but there's probably been a couple where there's been some glaring error halfway through, and I've only realised afterwards and had to go and chop a little bit out or something. But generally, it's just as it is basically.
Wow, that is so freeing. I need to learn how to do that better. Because and the funny thing is, if you think about it, and you think about what you've seen on YouTube, you see the really polished productions that look really, really great, and you can tell have multiple takes and all that stuff. And then you see channels that are doing exactly what you did, and there's big channels in both camps, right? They're not. It's not like if you do this, you're limited to only having a certain amount of subscribers. It's that connection with the audience that you're saying is so important, and being able to talk like you're talking to a friend, which I think is probably the biggest takeaway I've heard so far from you, is like being that way across the camera, and then people are drawn into that. So very, very cool.
I will say that if I was to do like a really hyper edited using all of the the proper YouTube editing techniques of cutting out all the breaks, cutting out all the filler words, cutting out all of this, I'm guessing that my YouTube channel may have slightly better growth. I would that is perhaps the case, but I would lose that what I think of as being, authentic, and just I want people to see that it's me. And I do see people who've got channels where they are hyper edited, and it almost feels like they've thought to themselves, right, got to be authentic, and so they've edited it in a way that makes them come across as authentic, when I can tell that they've just retaken things multiple times, because of it just comes off as, oh, that's just been, you've practiced that line over and over again to be able to deliver it in that way. Do you know what I mean? So I always think that like my goal is not actually YouTube growth primarily. That is obviously a gauge of how things are going, but I'm not sort of chasing those numbers primarily. I'm more chasing like the impact that I have, and the value that I can drive to people, and the traffic I can drive them from YouTube to the other things that I'm doing as well.
Yeah, and the community I think is a big part of that, because you do have a big community.
Yeah, absolutely,
exactly. One of the questions, because we've been talking about some tools, and we've been talking about tools for Ecamm that we use for live production. What are some underutilized features that can help creators elevate their digital stage presence, like that people don't think about, but you really should dive into this because it makes a difference?
So one of the things that I use all the time with Ecamm in particular, and if we're talking about like the digital stage, which is this box that we've got to work with on the screen, then I'd love to use Keynote or PowerPoint when you're bringing information up on the screen, and combine this with, there's a feature in Keynote which is their live video feature, and then they've got Magic Move. So what you can do is you bring in your camera into Keynote first, but then you can use this tool which is called Magic Move, which is basically just an easy way to sort of transition things around on the screen. So your camera can just sort of slide over to one side. Information can come onto the screen on the left or the right or the bottom or wherever. They've got the same thing in PowerPoint with the Morph tool, and then the live video coming through there. So actually, when I'm doing presentations, and this is what I mean when I talk about immersive presentations, rather than having, your slide deck on one side and your camera over on the other, and you're basically just running effectively a regular presentation where you're just speaking to some slides, being more conscious of, well, what screen real estate do I need to be taking up with this information right now? Because if you're just bringing it up like, a few bullet points, then maybe they can just be, down the side of your screen, for example, rather than in a full slide deck. And making sure that you're keeping yourself front and center when you are delivering your content. Because if you think about it, we're trying to replicate a real world situation here. You want to be the person that's delivering the content, not having you up in a little corner somewhere, as there's a big slide deck in front of people. So I think that that's something that does enhance what we're able to do with Ecamm in particular, and a lot of people still don't do that. And I think that one of the mistakes people make, and more so now with some of the beta features that are coming out in Ecamm in particular, where you can now use their live motion, which is a bit like Magic Move or Morph, to kind of move your camera around the screen, is trying to use Ecamm itself as your presentation software. And Ecamm has got great text tools, graphics tools in terms of shapes and cameras and overlays and all of these kind of things. But if you try to replicate a piece of presentation software in Ecamm, it's always going to add more of this friction that I keep talking about. And then you're going to end up with potentially like a bloated list of scenes in Ecamm where you've got to replicate a load of slides. Whereas if you've just got your collection of scenes, main camera, maybe a screen share, maybe one that's pulling in Keynote and it's live video. And then you've got another button for Keynote, which is next animation, next slide, next slide, next slide, or whatever. Then you've got a really lightweight setup, and the muscle memory is still there, whichever presentation you're doing, whichever bit of content you're trying to deliver. And so keep the live production into Ecamm, but keep the presentation into presentation software is a trick that I think some people miss. And I always love seeing the creativity in the Ecamm community of people saying, hey, look what I've might been able to create. And, they're creating these presentation-like things. But I just think from an implementation point of view, it's lacking that sort of muscle memory that I keep talking about.
Right, where you can just advance the slides and it's already set up and you can just keep talking.
Yep.
Very, very, yeah, especially if you're doing it by yourself. Like, I cheat a little bit because, Connor's here, because I can always, like, if I need to take a drink of water, I can just go to Connor and, like, see, look at him. He's excited to be here. But that's what I love having. Not just, he adds a little bit of flavor. Don't tell him I said that.
Yeah.
But it's another bonus. So
what kind of flavor would you say I add? Spicy,
what's that really nasty drink in Disney?
Okay, so we'll move on here before we get to that answer. Sean from But Mostly Disney has two great comments. He says, the live video is so much easier. No editing, no second guessing. The mistakes just become charming. Oh, that should be my motto. The mistakes are charming about real life. But then I also love how he goes on to say, plus it's genuine. Like this Friday show, it looks polished, but he feels like we're just sitting somewhere, having a beer, talking about stuff we love, which is great. And I think that kind of goes into this question that I wanted to ask, which is, how do we differentiate a virtual meeting, a virtual presentation from just another Zoom call? It's like that old adage, well, this meeting could have been an email. This live presentation is just another Zoom meeting. So Alec, what kind of like strategies do you recommend for people who are using live video in meetings, using live video in virtual presentations? What do you recommend they do to just differentiate themselves from it not feeling like another Zoom?
If you're using Ecamm in Zoom, you're already like in the fraction of a percent of people who are doing things like this in Zoom. And honestly, even like what you've just done there, like putting up a lower third, it's when you're in the Ecamm community, it's very easy for it to become normalized, and we're so used to this and so used to seeing all the amazing things that the Ecamm community do in their productions. But then you go like into the real world, into a regular Zoom meeting, and you put up like an animated lower third across the bottom that's got your name and company, and people are like, "Whoa, what just happened there?" And it still hasn't really caught on to that fact. Not to mention the fact that if you are doing anything with live video and recording and live streaming, likely you've also got your camera, audio, lighting dialed in as well. So you're already, looking shiny amongst all the other boxes on the screen that people are looking at. So if you're in like a group session, and really it is like this thing of first impressions. If you go into a group Zoom call, for example, where you've got like lots of people in there, the people who are just already looking polished from a video quality point of view, and then they speak and then they can be heard properly, you're already elevating yourself above the rest. It's that setting yourself as an authority in the room, as it were. When it comes to then actually presenting, when you see people do presentations in Zoom, there is this other thing that happens where if they're sharing their screen, running a presentation, there's this little screen sharing dance that goes on where they say, okay, I'm going to just share my screen now. I'm clicking here. I'm selecting this window. Oh, that's not the right one. Let me go back. I'll select this window. Are you seeing that yet? Right. And then when that comes up, then they've basically, for the viewer, the other participants, they're then seeing, full screen of a screen share or full screen of a PowerPoint. And the person has then disappeared, maybe even off the screen altogether, or maybe just down to a little window, like a tiny little, thumbnail in the corner. So you've already lost that connection as well. but you've also lost the flow. And that's really what live production gives, is this effortless flow that you have to be able to just be talking into the camera and then to just bring some information on screen as you need it and then flick it off again when you don't need it and just go back and forth like that. And it's this fluidity that you get through live production that you just can't possibly get with regular Zoom, frankly, just doing regular screen shares. Not to mention the production value that you are demonstrating there. If you are, doing any form of sales in using this indirectly or directly, you're automatically showing, well, this is how this person shows up for the meeting. It's the equivalent of going in, why do people wear business suits and things like that? It's setting an expectation there. Well, this is kind of like our digital business suit, basically. So you're going in and you're showing, this is the level of quality that I'm setting for myself. And so, you can therefore assume that a same level of quality will be applied throughout all of our interactions, if that's the attention to detail you're giving. And that's really the opportunity.
Yeah, that is a good point. And I know I'm going to pull up a question from Chris Stone, and Chris and I talk a lot. And he, one of his videos are very slick and polished and look great. His short form content, all that stuff, and that gives him business because people see that professional value. They see what he can do with his remote production or video editing skills and podcast production, and it allows. It's like that is the top of the funnel. Like you see Chris Stone's video, it's a Chris Stone video, and then people hire him to do that for their own companies. And his question I think is great, is he says, making things look easy isn't easy. It's a blessing and a curse. How do you develop the technique of being succinct for a complicated technique?
So the fluidity comes with practice. So that's why it is a great idea to just start creating content for a channel that's kind of related to your company or your business. If we're talking about from a business standpoint, because people will get that. They'll be taken on that journey. I'm on so many consultation calls with people where the first thing they say is, I'm really sorry. It just feels like I've known you forever because they've watched, potentially hours of content. And that is really why it is such a powerful inbound marketing tool, because people do get to see, and especially when it's all, one take, they really feel like they've got to know you because you're talking to them as a friend in a friendly way through the camera. So they feel that they know you. So coming back to Chris's point, though, how you make, how you get that, which I think is the point. It is just through practice and building that muscle memory of being able to switch back and forth between things. And then if you're talking about stuff that and you've got, the whatever it is, if you're an educator and you've got the content on the PowerPoint or the keynote slides that you're bringing in with these techniques that we're talking about, then it's just this muscle memory of knowing which button to press to be able to show what you want to show on the screen at that given time. And you do get to a point where you don't really need to look at your Stream Deck if that's what you're using to control Ecamm, for example. You just instinctively know, I can just reach down and press this button and it'll switch to this scene or that scene or whatever.
So the last question that I kind of wanted to talk about is on this section is how do you coach people? This kind of goes to what Chris was talking about. How do you coach people who feel camera shy or uncomfortable presenting live or even live to tape, especially in professional settings? We're talking about Zoom. It's kind of, if you have a nice looking setup, it kind of is that business suit that you wear to have that professional. But when people are like, whenever the camera's on, I start stumbling over my words, or I hate the way I sound. Those things I know you've heard, Alec. What do you tell people and coach them in when they feel that uncomfortableness when they go live?
So a few of the things that I've mentioned already, like having somebody in mind that you are speaking to, first of all, and just imagine that you're just making that video for them, because, if people think that they're talking to the world, then they can feel that they're in the spotlight of the stage, and that conjures up all of those sorts of visions. Well, if you kind of put those out of your mind and think, well, actually, I'm just talking to this one person, and that could be somebody who really needs to hear this message. And that is the other thing that, as I say, as you start doing this, you will get all of those comments. And the thing that seems like so trivial to you, perhaps something that you do day in, day out. And I mean, this is related to tutorial style content, but there are things that I just drop into videos that I don't really think about. They're just little
right.
Snippets of information. And then I'll get a comment that says like, oh my God, that setting in the preferences window changed my life. And it's like, you realize that these little things can really have an impact on people as well. But when it comes to live streaming in particular, another thing, if you're just starting out doing live streaming, is to have somebody that is a trusted person join the stream and say, hey, I'm going live at this time, will you join? Because as soon as you feel that you're speaking to somebody and you can see it because they're in the comments and they're chatting with you, suddenly you kind of actually forget that there are other people watching as well. so just having somebody and that's going to show up and be a bit of an accountability partner on one hand, but also a supportive partner on the other, that's going to just be dropping in there and commenting. And that's what I found, that if you look at my very first video on YouTube, just search them by order of date or whatever.
Right.
The first video was a live stream, and it was kind of me just like, hi, not quite knowing who I was speaking to.
Yeah.
And I kind of knew what I was going to talk about, but I didn't know how I was speaking to. But very quickly after 2 or 3 or 4, when I started building a bit of momentum and people started watching, then by number 5, there was people in there that I kind of knew and I'd connected with. And so then it was I came across, I think, probably as a lot more familiar with the audience, because it was just these recognized faces that I was seeing in there. So that's another a good thing, is just get somebody that's going to show up for you and have the conversation with them.
Yeah, I totally agree.
That's awesome. I think one thing that Ecamm does great is bringing in elements that help you engage more with your audience. And I think that's the huge difference from live streaming versus like just the news, right? The news is very much, they're talking at you. They're talking at you. They're not receiving any sort of feedback in real time. But a live stream is much more, we're talking with you, right? The audience is engaging with you. But at the same time, you still want to work actively to keep that audience engaged. Pulling up comments is a great way to do that. Alec, do you have other interactive elements, interactive ideas or ways and tools that you love to use on a live production that helps you keep your audience engaged, like pulling up comments or things like that?
Yeah, I do pull up comments. I've changed the way that I do that slightly as well, though, because I also want to balance, and this is probably going to go off your point, actually, counter to your point, but I'll bring it back, I promise, which is that I always used to start my every live stream. First of all, I had a countdown, because everyone has a countdown on a live stream, right? So I'll just do what they do. So I had a 3-minute countdown at the beginning of the stream where there's like music playing or whatever, and then the counter's going down, stream starting soon, that kind of thing. And then the first thing I'd do when the countdown end was I'd check in with the chat, and it'd be like, hi guys, and just go through like everybody in the chat, because I did want to have them obviously make them feel involved. When I kind of stopped doing my recorded videos, and I didn't do that, I didn't make a decision I'm going to stop doing recorded videos. It was just because the last 2 years I've basically been building out, over 10 courses and creating all the course content for that and in the academy. And so I just haven't had the same time to devote to recorded videos. So I've been doing just primarily live streams every week on my channel. I think I did 6 recorded videos last year. It was just all but 50 live streams. So what I've noticed was the replay value on live streams wasn't as great, because it was fine with people who were following the channel, but from a discoverability point of view, there would be this thing of, people would see a thumbnail, see the title of it, and then they'd click into it, and they were immediately faced with like a countdown for 3 minutes. Now, some people would scrub through it, but other people, that would be a turn off. Then, even if they scrubbed through that, if there was basically just 5 minutes of me saying hi guys to everybody, then they'd think like, well, where's the actual content starting? And so I did a bit of a switch with my live streams, where I now just do them as if it was a recorded video. I just hit live and I just go straight into it, so I don't have a countdown. If anybody's joining after the start, they can always go back and catch up on double speed, or watch the replay to catch the beginning or whatever. But then the other thing I do is I do also do like the main content first, and I say, this is what we're talking about, and I go straight into the content. But then it's like when I'm partway in, that's when I start checking in with the comments and questions and things like that. I also sort of have a dedicated scene then that I've set up with comments, so that I can be very intentional about saying, okay, now I'm going to go to comments, and I go to that scene, and it's, you know, me on one side, comments on the other. And part of that is because I know myself, I have a tendency to be easily distracted and go down rabbit holes. So if I'm just pulling comments up, then I used to find myself in situations where I'd put a comment on the screen, and then I'd switch to a different scene and come back, and that comment would still be there, and all of these kind of things. So that's the way that I approach commenting is like that. But in terms of other audience engagement methods, there's some really interesting tools actually coming out, and one of the ones I'm going to be using for the summit that's coming up is called Stream Alive, and that was created out of somebody noticing that they were going to training sessions that were on Zoom and live streams, and the host would do this thing where they said, you know, at the beginning of a meeting, hey, drop in the chat where you're watching from or where you're calling from, and everyone would then go in and drop where they're calling from. But then some of those people would get, you know, called out and say, you know, welcome to this person in this location or whatever, but other people wouldn't. And so they wouldn't necessarily all feel included in that in any case. And also it seemed a little bit like it was going through the motions of just like, here's me doing my audience engagement bit and asking this question. So Stream Alive, what that does is, one of the initial thing about it was that question, where are you calling from? Well, it actually, you have it join your live stream or join your Zoom meeting, and then it will put all of those locations onto a map. So you can set up a scene in Ecamm that's got you and the map, and then it will just drop on all of those different locations of where everyone's calling from. And so you can visually see it yourself. So it's a great feedback for yourself. But it's also, you know, showing the audience where everyone is as well. And it's got a visual aspect to it as well, rather than just a thing in the chat. And then that's been developed as well into, there's loads more things you can do with Stream Alive, like, you know, ask questions, but then have like a poll that comes up on the screen. So you ask a question, you know, do you think A, B, or C or whatever? And then that can come up on the screen. Things like audience giveaways, you know, if you want to pick a winner out of a thing, it's got, you know, the sort of spinning wheel type thing that comes up. And you can build out all of these kind of things, though, really simply with that into Ecamm. And then that's a much more visual thing that you're doing then for the audience. So I'll be using that a lot in the summit, actually.
Well, dang it! Every time guest comes on, I spend money. Now I have to go look at this and play with it. Thanks, Alec. So that's very, very cool. By the way, we've been talking a lot about interactive, you know, things we can do on live video, live to tape. And that is brought to you by our friends over at Ecamm. And you can find out more about them by going to ecamm.com/Jeff. Save 15% by using code Jeff15. And it's a great group. And by the way, if you do decide to use this today, make sure that you go and sign up for Alec's training. It's right there at Ecamm, where you can, it's free. I'm going to go look at it because there's always stuff to learn. Like today, I just learned about Stream Alive, which now I've got to go get for this show. But make sure you guys go check that out. ecamm.com/Jeff. All right, for this, time is flying by. Alec, this is great. And by the way, I want to say this before we get going too far. Alec has this summit going on right now. And before we get to our next section, I wanted to pull that up. It's the digitalstagesummit.com for you guys listening online. He's got tons of my friends there speaking. Chris Stone is going to be one of the speakers. He's going to be talking all about the script. So I'm excited about that one. But make sure you guys go check that out. Alec, do you want to do a quick little plug here talking about the Digital Stage Summit?
Yeah, sure. So it's 18th to the 20th of March. It's 3 days, 12 hours a day. So there's so much content packed into it with, as you say, great speakers. And really, it is all about like harnessing this digital stage that we have. But there are a few different aspects to it. So I've kind of loosely split it into 3 days, although there's a bit of crossover there. But day one is all about like the tools and the tech. And that's not just the actual tech tools themselves, but things like Descript. Mm-hmm. So Chris will be speaking on day one, and how to get a strategy in place for your live video, be it for recorded content, meetings, or or live streams as well. But then day 2 is about this other aspect, which we've talked about a little bit here, which is your on-screen presence. So there is a certain amount that you have to do in terms of, storytelling, connecting with your audience, all of those kind of things. So that's where day 2's focus is. But then day 3 is all about the business side of it and actually growing your business using live video. But it's not just about sort of monetization strategies, although there is some of that and the sales side of things, but it's also about the mindset as well. So we've got a few great sessions in there that are going to help you, get over any of those barriers. And sometimes, we know what to do, but we're not doing it, or, and it's not just down to a lack of knowledge or motivation. There are other factors at play here. So we've got some interesting sessions that should help with that sort of thing. So that's what it's all about, really, is about understanding how to maximize your digital stage, master it, and then monetize it.
Mm-hmm. Tons of great people. So guys, make sure you check that out. digitalstagesummit.com. It's going to be amazing. It's very excited about it. So Connor, you're up.
So much content. That's going to be awesome. We want to kind of wrap up the show with a few questions in this category of how to be authentic, right? Through your live video. Alec, what do you find that people mistakes that people make that just make them come across as inauthentic on live video? I know something like we just kind of talked about, hey, drop it in the chat, right? And then they're just pulling up those kind of comments. I always found that to be a little inauthentic because you're just kind of going through the motions, right? It's not necessarily like you care. Maybe then you follow up with, oh, you're from Boise, Idaho. I was just there for XYZ. That's a little bit more authentic.
XYZ.
XYZ. Sorry.
I didn't understand that for a moment.
Google Translate that.
Yeah.
Some common mistakes that you just find people making that prevent them from being their true authentic self through live video.
I think it is the thing of people trying. I think that's the problem, is people are trying to be authentic and they're thinking like, what do I need to, what techniques do I need to harness to be authentic? And, trying different strategies and ultimately it comes down to just be yourself. It is as simple as that. And I think that that's one thing that you do get by default with the one take or the live to tape, I should say. If you are just speaking as if you're speaking to a friend, that's all it needs to be, and it doesn't need to be overcomplicated. But I think people do overcomplicate it and try to get things try to force authenticity, and it just stands out a mile in my book.
Yeah. Well, Alec, we are at the end of our time. This has been amazing. I want to give you enough time. I mean, you talked about the Digital Stage Summit, but you have tons of stuff on your website at takeonetech.io. So tell people where they can find you, what's going on. I know the Digital Stage Summit, but anything else you got, the floor is yours.
So Take One Tech is the home for it all. And I've got courses, the Ecamm Masterclass, ecammlivemasterclass.com. That is completely free. I've also got courses on Stream Deck, on Rodecaster, on like the tech side of things, on Keynote. Also one on outsourcing. That was something that really accelerated my business growth, was outsourcing. So there's a step-by-step guide on there, so how you can outsource the minutiae of the business so that you can focus on the bigger picture stuff. And that is a real sort of game changer. But then I've also got the Digital Stage Academy as well, which you can also access from takeonetech.io. And that's really a sort of community where it gives you access to all of the courses, but then also we have weekly office hour sessions. And it's just a really nice community where we're all supporting one another. And if you want that accelerated growth, then there's no better way to do it than with the accountability and support of others. And also you'll find my private coaching that I do on there as well.
Yeah, and by the way, I just want to pull up this from Video Like a Dad. He goes, I've learned so much from Alec's content. Excited for the upcoming Digital Stage Summit. So people are chomping at the bit for Alec's content. So digitalstagesummit.com is where you can get that newest thing that's coming out. Connor Brown, where can people find out about the unsinkable Connor Brown and what you got going on?
Absolutely. Vacationkingdoms.com. Listen, we're in the thick of spring break here in the States, but I'm really curious, what travel plans do you have for the summer? Let me know. Email me, conor@vacationkingdoms.com. I'm just curious where everyone's going to be traveling this summer. Follow me at Vacation Kingdoms across the social web as well. Great show today from X, Y to Z.
That's right. And by the way, if you want to know about great upcoming shows like we have, you can go to jeffc.com/news. Get on the list. We have fun in our email community talking back and forth. Tuesdays and Fridays are when the emails usually come out. So jeffc.com/news. And thanks to our sponsor, Ecamm. You can find out more about them at ecamm.com/Jeff. With that, thanks everybody. Chris Stone, Ask Ralph, Dustin Stout was here, Kira was here, Video Like a Dad, all of you. Thank you so much for watching the show today. We wouldn't be able to do this show without you, and of course our sponsor, Ecamm. And with that, we'll see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.